Hi, this is John with Flat 6 Motorsports, and welcome back to another update of the Project 996 Carrera. We're here at Driver's Choice. Our friends that are helping us tear down this M96 motor found a couple things on the inside. Obviously, there was an audible knock that you heard in a previous episode, but let's get into what they found and some of the plans that we can go over of this build. So down here in cylinder 3, you can see that the cylinder wall has been marked up, and what caused that damage is some slight damage, but enough that you would have to redo that cylinder, is on piston 3, a circlip from the piston pin came loose. So somebody had been in this motor, they replaced the IMS shaft with the M97 shaft, and in doing that, when they put the motor back together, obviously the circlip didn't seat correctly, and so what happened was that clip over time came off, and it was actually still in the motor when it was pulled apart, but that ring on the piston moved over and started marking the cylinder wall just slightly. So otherwise, as the motor came apart, everything else is pretty clean on the inside. Had that been caught earlier, we'd probably avoid this whole rebuild process. Actually, for 131,000 miles, this motor is in really good shape. So as you can see here is piston 3 on the bottom side. You see this crack right here. And what happened is this pin slid out and started making some damage inside of the piston because it was banging into the side of it as the motor was spinning, and just created a stress fracture right there. So we're obviously going to bore this out, so we do not have to reuse these pistons, which is good. But that is the culprit of the damage. Not significant, but enough that you'd have to redo some of the stuff anyways. And we like having fun, so we're gonna have some fun with this motor. All right, so with all that, we're going to build this motor. We're gonna send out the case halves, get those re-sleeved and bored. That's gonna be a 3.8 liter engine we're going after here. We're hoping to get around 350 or so at the wheels. Builder of this said that a similar setup has done 365 at the wheels, which is pretty impressive. But we're gonna replace all of the common wear components inside of the engine, really doing a proper job on this rebuild. So do, valve guides, chain tensioners, etc., all the way down the line. So this is basically going to be a new motor when it's all said and done. We're going to port and polish the heads. We want to optimize the flow and do a 3-step valve job on the head side to get some better flow out of the engine. The rods are a Carrera forged rod. The pistons are a CP piston, and those have been bumped up from an 11.3 to 11.5 compression ratio. So just a slight bump. Really what's going to make the biggest difference here is going to be the larger displacement of the motor, going from a 3.6 to a 3.8, and then also optimizing the flow. We'll get into bolt-ons and such later after we get the car running and get into it. This does have the M97 larger IMS shaft already in it. We'll replace the bearing on that. And just a bunch of maintenance type items to get this motor running in a really good spot. So that's the update we have right now on the Project 996 Carrera. Really excited to get this car back together and running. I think it'll be a really well performing car. We have a lot of upgrades we're going to do to it once we get it back. But for now, obviously some of this motor work has to get done. Some stuff needs to be sent out, and we'll be waiting for all that stuff to come back. In the interim, we may do some cosmetic stuff. We need to get the car painted, so that might happen potentially while we're waiting on the motor to come back, depending on timeline. Right now, I don't have an exact date, but we expect sometime in the first quarter, probably early spring, to have this all back together and running. So we might not have an update for you for a little while, but if you have any questions, feel free to comment below. Make sure you subscribe, because we're gonna bust out a lot of different episodes once we get this back and we start doing some upgrades to the suspension, brakes, really doing a complete overhaul of this car. So we're gonna take this 2002 car and really try to bring it up to a 2022 level. Obviously there are some older engineered parts, but we're replacing so much on this car that it's really gonna hopefully drive and perform like a more modern 911. If you have any questions regarding the 996 or parts for your 996, we have a very wide selection of performance parts at flat6motorsports.com. We'll see you in the next one.